Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Montmorency, Charlevoix-Haute-Côte-Nord.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. On voit où sont les priorités. Il y a peut-être un projet de loi qui n'a pas pu voir le jour suite à une élection, mais le gouvernement a commencé par se concentrer sur les billes omnibus comme la criminalité avant de présenter des mesures concrètes pour régler les problèmes des Autochtones. Moi, j'ai une question précise. C'est ce matin, j'ai entendu que le gouvernement appuyait la motion des libéraux. Avec l'amendement, est-ce que le gouvernement l'appuie toujours et est-ce que le gouvernement s'engage concrètement à 100% de se mettre corps et âme là-dedans pour régler le problème et que ce soit pas seulement question d'image et faire du capital politique sur le dos des peuples autochtones?
The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the honourable member for his question. I think in government it's only fair to say that there are many responsibilities, many requests, many issues to deal with. Certainly safe water and our dealing with the Aboriginal folks is the top priority of this government. I think we would be wrong to suggest that no other issues are before Parliament. There are many issues. Today, Mr. Speaker, we're looking at safe water issue, and we're working very hard to ensure that safe water is in fact a way of life on all reserves from coast to coast to coast.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the presentation made by my friend and colleague from Palliser. I think if there's one thing that's learned in the intent of today's motion, the intent of today's debate is sort of where we go from here. And one thing that we've seen, and which is not uncommon to infrastructure investment, is that once something is built, how does it continue to provide for the community going forward, in operation, in maintenance. So, and we look at Keshesheswan, the infrastructure was there, and we can debate whether or not it was the right plant at the right place, and we can debate those things. But certainly, one thing that in the report that came out that was truly lacking was training for the operators in that plant. So, does my colleague see that there should be, even before we make commitments, before any government makes a commitment to putting bricks and mortar and working toward development of infrastructure, that a key component of that has to be some type of training component, human resource development, so that those issues and problems are able to be addressed with local answers and local initiatives. Thank you.
The honourable member for Palliser.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my honourable member across the way. Certainly a very good question, and we looked at that very carefully in presenting the bill to the House. We wanted to make sure we covered as many options and bases as possible. I just again quote for you and for the House, Mr. Speaker. In the discussion here, we're suggesting that this work with clean water will provide many opportunities for skill developments, and we're looking at the First Nations people manning their own operations, being trained to handle how they deal with water to make it safe, being trained to handle wastewater. We say here that the development will have many meaningful jobs. It will also help spur economy because it will offer employment for people that may not be employed at the time the training happens here, so that there will be economic growth, and it'll help put a foundation for long-term prosperity for many of the First Nations people that will be working in the water treatment.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I understand that the Assemblée des Premières Nations du Québec et du Labrador passed a resolution to explore regulatory development, and that they in fact reconfirmed that resolution in September of this year, and that the Atlantic Policy Congress passed a similar resolution. Could the member for Palliser enlighten the House as to whether other First Nations have been consulted in the development of this legislation in the way that those two bodies have played into it.
The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my colleague for that question. Just referring back for the answer, let me share this with the House. Since 2006, ANNDC and Health Canada have engaged with First Nations and First Nations organizations at the provincial and at the territorial level for the development of a framework that will allow water treatment access for all First Nations people and make sure that the project moves forward. So it's a very good question, and when the bill was crafted, it was taken into consideration that would certainly have to be addressed, and it has been addressed.
Question et commentaire, l'honorable député de Compton-Stanstead.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je félicite mon collègue d'en face pour cette merveilleuse démonstration d'action, de programmes et de mesures entreprises pour aider les Autochtones, les Premières Nations. Mais le rapport du vérificateur général de 2011 dit qu'il y a encore plusieurs lacunes et qu'il y a surtout ses principales lacunes, c'est justement la courroie de transmission, c'est comment on transmet aux Premières Nations les pouvoirs et les autorités, la liberté d'agir dans leur propre communauté. Puisqu'en fin de compte, malgré toutes les mesures qui ont été prises depuis plusieurs années, il n'y a aucun progrès en ce qui concerne la santé des enfants et la salubrité des installations pour la gestion des eaux usées. Donc, comment pourrait-on faire comment peut-on croire que le gouvernement va entreprendre réellement des actions afin de rendre accessible aux familles, aux femmes, aux enfants, l'eau potable et justement que les Premières Nations puissent agir librement avec les programmes fédéraux.
The honourable member for Palliser.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to the honourable member for the question. I think, as we said earlier in the presentation to the House, government cannot solve all ills of society in one move. And certainly we acknowledge that much has to be done in this Parliament to help the First Nations folks, and we have to work together to ensure safe drinking water and disposal of wastewater. All we can say is that what has happened prior to our introduction of this bill is water under the bridge, if you'll pardon the pun. But we certainly we can't go back and fix that. What we're trying to do is, well, what we will do, not try, what we will do is move forward and deal with issues that are current today and tomorrow.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Medicine Hat.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to, first of all, congratulate my colleague from Palliser on his great speech today and certainly all the information provided. And so my question to my colleague is, how is the government working with partners to improve water quality across First Nations? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks for that good question from my colleague. The government is well aware that the only course of action that really works well is partnerships. And when you have a strong partnership, then things will happen. And so there's an increased access to look at water systems. The First Nations folks are talking about work that will eventually move to 375 operators, will be trained people. That's part of the answer in terms of ensuring that there's partnerships, that there's like thinking and designs that will carry things forward. Wastewater projects, will affect 36,000 people in a positive manner. So part of this will all be part and parcel of the bill when it's tabled here in the House.